The question was simple, almost too simple to matter, but it stopped time. Want to share the table? No one in that quiet, softly lit restaurant expected those 5 words to change 2 lives forever. Not the tired single father standing awkwardly beside a small table meant for one. Not the powerful woman sitting across the room, used to silence, success, and distance. And certainly not the little girl holding a folded paper crane in her tiny hands, watching the world with innocent curiosity. It was late afternoon, the kind of calm daylight that makes everything feel still, like the world is holding its breath. Sunlight filtered gently through the large glass windows, casting warm golden streaks across polished wooden floors. People sat scattered across the restaurant, engaged in quiet conversations or lost in their own thoughts. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Ares Malik wasn't supposed to be there. He had walked in hesitantly, his daughter Sana clutching his sleeve, both of them clearly out of place among the neatly dressed crowd. Ares's shirt was clean but worn, his shoes slightly scuffed, and his eyes carried the weight of too many sleepless nights. Life had not been kind to him, but he had never allowed that to show. In front of his daughter, that day had already been long. Arias had spent hours searching for work, walking under the harsh sun, going from office to office, rejection after rejection piling silently in his chest. Sana had been by his side the entire time, not complaining once, only asking simple questions and occasionally pointing at things that made her smile. By the time they reached the restaurant, it wasn't luxury they were seeking, it was simply rest. But rest, it seemed, came with a price. The place was nearly full, except for a few isolated tables. Ares hesitated at the entrance, glancing around, calculating silently. He didn't want to leave again, not after seeing the exhaustion in Sana's eyes. But he also knew he couldn't afford anything extravagant. Still, he walked in. The host gave them a polite but slightly uncertain look before guiding them toward a small corner table. It was barely enough space, but Ares didn't mind. He pulled out the chair for Sana, helped her sit, and then sat across from her, offering a soft smile that tried to hide his worry. Sana smiled back, her face lighting up as if the world was still perfect. That smile, it was the only thing keeping him going. Across the room sat Zara Rehman, a name that carried weight in boardrooms, a woman whose decisions shaped companies, whose presence commanded respect. As the CEO of one of the fastest-growing firms in the country, she was used to control, structure, and precision. Her days were filled with meetings, negotiations, and responsibilities that left little room for anything personal. She had chosen that restaurant for its quiet atmosphere, a rare escape from the chaos of her routine, a place where she could sit alone, think, and breathe without interruption. But something about that man and his daughter caught her attention. At first it was just a glance, a moment of curiosity, but then she noticed the details, the way Ares carefully adjusted the napkin on Sana's lap, the way he checked the menu multiple times before deciding, the way he kept looking at her with gentle reassurance, even when he himself seemed uncertain. It wasn't pity that Zara felt. It was something deeper, something unfamiliar. Time passed slowly. Arise ordered the simplest item on the menu, something small enough to fit within his limited means. He watched Sana as she folded her paper crane, her tiny fingers working with focused determination. For a moment, the world felt lighter. But then came the problem. A group of new customers entered the restaurant. Loud, confident, and clearly important. The staff shifted their attention immediately. The manager approached Ares's table with a careful expression, one that tried to be polite but couldn't fully hide its intention. There had been a mistake, he explained. The table they were sitting at had been reserved. Ares nodded quietly. understanding the situation without needing further explanation. He looked at Sana, who had just finished her paper crane and was smiling proudly. He didn't want to move her again. He didn't want to take away that small moment of joy. That's when he stood up, took a breath, and looked across the room. Zara was sitting alone at a table meant for four. Their eyes met for a brief second, and then, with quiet courage, Ariz walked toward her. Want to share the table? The restaurant fell into an almost imperceptible silence. It wasn't the kind of question people asked someone like Zara Rehman. Not strangers, not someone dressed like Ariz, not in a place like this. But there was no arrogance in his voice, no entitlement, just honesty, and something else, dignity. Zara stared at him for a moment, surprised, not by the request itself, but by the calm strength behind it. She looked at Sana, who was now peeking from behind her father, holding the paper crane as if it was something precious. For reasons she couldn't fully explain, Zara nodded. Yes. That single word changed everything. They sat together in quiet simplicity. Ariz thanked her politely, helping Sana settle into the seat beside him. There was no awkwardness, no unnecessary conversation, just a shared space, a shared moment. Zara observed them closely. She noticed how Ariz broke his food into smaller pieces for Sana, making sure she ate first. She noticed how he listened to her stories, even the small childish ones, as if they were the most important things in the world. She noticed how he smiled, not out of happiness, but out of love. It was a kind of love Zara had rarely seen, or perhaps forgotten. As the afternoon light softened, something inside her began to shift. The walls she had built over years of ambition and solitude felt less solid, less necessary. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about business. She was simply watching, listening, feeling. Ariz didn't try to impress her. He didn't ask who she was or what she did. He treated her like any other person, respectfully, naturally, without expectations. And that was what made it unforgettable. Before leaving, Sana placed the paper crane gently on the table in front of Zara. A small, innocent gift. Zara picked it up carefully, her fingers tracing the delicate folds. It was imperfect, slightly uneven, but somehow it felt more valuable than anything she owned. That night stayed with her. Days turned into weeks, but the memory never faded. The image of that father, his quiet strength, his unwavering love, it followed her into meetings, into decisions, into moments of silence. It made her question things, her priorities, her purpose, her life. Months later, Zara made a decision that surprised everyone. She started a program within her company, one that focused on hiring individuals who had been overlooked, people who carried stories, struggles, and potential. People like Ariz. She never saw him again. Not in that restaurant, not in the streets, but she never forgot him, because sometimes the smallest moments create the biggest changes, and sometimes all it takes is a simple question. Want to share the table? If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. You never know whose life a small act of kindness might change. And before this story ends, tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment that changed your life forever? Because in a world that often feels divided, rushed, and distant, it's the quiet moments of connection that remind us what truly matters. And somewhere, right now, someone is still waiting for a simple invitation to share a table.